Hey folks, how you doing? Hey, like many of you, jerky is one of my favorite things to eat, and I've always just wanted to make a video about it, even though there are a lot of videos out there about jerky. Nobody quite makes it like I do, and I just like the way I make it. And I also don't see a lot of people getting into specifics about how they make jerky. They're just really quick 3-minute videos, and I can never tell exactly what they're doing. I like to make mine with Hi Mountain Seasonings, and I get their stuff on Amazon. This is not sponsored in any way. It's just the type of seasoning I like. You can get Hi Mountain Seasonings on Amazon, and I'll show them to you right here. You can get them in many different flavors. It's actually very inexpensive. I just prefer seasonings. I'm not really into the marinade very much because marinade just, you have to have a lot of stuff on hand, like soy sauce and vinegar and all this different stuff on hand. And also, I like to smoke my jerky in a smoker, in a pellet smoker. And I've noticed that marinade, if you marinate meat, the smoke can't penetrate the marinade very well, at least in my experience. So I'm just not a big marinade guy. I'm a seasonings guy. Also, when I make jerky, I like to keep it simple. I do have an electric meat slicer, but I don't use it because it just doesn't give me a lot of options or a lot of control, or if I'm trying to get fat out of it or cut a certain part I don't like or just in a certain way. I just cut it with a knife. I can cut 3 pounds of jerky in 20 minutes. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Also, when it comes to meat, remember you got to use very lean meat when you're making jerky. A lot of people think, hey, when I buy a steak, I want high fat content because, you know, more fat, more flavor. But for jerky, you're really trying to minimize the amount of fat content in that jerky because it'll rot quicker and it won't smoke as well, it won't dehydrate. It's just not good for it. So I use, to start off with, my favorite one is eye of round. That's my favorite cut. It comes in a roast between 4 and 6 pounds. Next up would be like a top round or a bottom round, like a London broil. So just a couple of other things before we start. This whole process, if you do it, will take you about 3 to 4 hours. I'm doing it on a pellet smoker at about 180 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 82 degrees Celsius for those of you not in the US. And also, I just wanted to talk about food safety. So a lot of people make jerky with curing salt along with seasoning or marinade. And, you know, curing salt is controversial. Some people use it, some people don't. I prefer to use it. It comes with the kit. I think it tastes fine. You don't want to over cure it, that's for sure. But I'm really into food safety, and even with curing it, I'll still throw the jerky right in the refrigerator when I'm done with it. You know, truth be told, it'd probably be fine if you went out camping to take it out for a few days in a vacuum sealed bag or something like that. But I choose to use the curing salt. It works for me. And lastly, before we start, I just wanted to mention that the audio in this video has some issues, not enough to where I wouldn't have put it out there. It's okay, you're probably going to notice it. But I'm messing around with some new mics. I'm trying new audio setups and things like that. So there's a couple of weird moments in this video, but I think it'll be fine. I hope you enjoy. Okay, here's what we use to make the jerky. I told you I use Hi Mountain Seasonings, which is my favorite. Now, this is a package you get in the mail when you order it at Amazon, wherever you order it from. And I'm actually not making the snack and sticks today like it says on the package there. I ordered a package for those who want to learn how to do that later. But it looks similar to the package for regular jerky, so I just put it in here so you can see what it looks like. Then of course I use eye of round steak like I talked about before. Eye of round meat, that's the roast I use to cut up. That's the leanest, best meat to use for jerky. And then of course you have the instructions here that will show you how much of each ingredient you need to use for depending on how much meat you use. You'll see that comes in the package too, but I'll show you how much I use for all this stuff. Now, just for informational purposes here, you can cut this however thick you like. There's some recommendations that I have when making jerky on a smoker, dehydrator, anywhere else you make it. There's things I'd recommend. I'd recommend never going too thick because if you do, it won't dehydrate in time. It'll basically just be a dry steak if you make it too thick. You want it to be jerky now, and also you don't want it too thin because then it'll get done too quickly without getting enough smoke, and it just doesn't have the texture I like. I cut it around 1/8 of an inch. 1/16 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch is good. I don't like 1/4 inch thick jerky like a lot of guys like. Anyway, let's cut off the fat cap and see what we got here. Remember, the less fat, the better when you're making jerky. It's the opposite of steaks. With steaks, you like high fat meat because it provides flavor. With jerky, you want low fat meat because the higher the fat content, the faster it will rot, and you do not want that. And it'll also just be harder to dehydrate it and cook it. It's just not conducive to making jerky, high fat content. So we're going to cut this fat cap off of the meat, and we're going to see what we have going on here inside, because you just never know what slab you're going to get, what kind of meat you're going to get, how much fat content it's going to have. Okay, this is going to be the first one. Now you can see what we're contending with here. Mostly fat-free, as you guys can see. But there's, you know, this little fat vein in the middle, and I'm sure that we'll get to that. So let me just start cutting the strips. It's okay, nothing needs to be perfect. Just get it nice and looking like a little bit like jerky. That. Now, you can see that a piece like this has quite a bit of fat content in it, just because that's just happens to be the part of the meat where we cut. On eye of round, you're not going to find a lot of spots like this, but this one has some. And it's up to you if you want to leave that or cut it off. I'm going to cut some of this out just because I would like a really lean jerky. So I'm going to cut some of this out and leave it as, you know, dog scraps. Okay folks, so here is the pile of meat that we ended up with. I'm going to go ahead and weigh it. And this is where it does get kind of important in this process with the Hi Mountain Seasonings, because you're going to be using cure to cure the meats, curing salt, and you don't want to add too much of that because it'll make it taste really, really salty, obviously. And you don't want to, you know, not use enough because then it won't cure it. Here's where the scale comes in. We need to know how much meat we have so that we know how much seasoning and cure to use. And it looks like we're at almost 3 pounds. So also sometimes when you're, you know, cutting up jerky, and sometimes, you know, a little scrap might end up on the floor. That happens sometimes. Oops. Okay, so the jerky has been curing for 24 hours and it's time to put it on the grill. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that, or how I do it. I have a pellet smoker. You can cook it in any way you want to. You can cook it in the oven. You can use a dehydrator. I like cooking it on the pellet smoker. I think it turns out really well. Now my pellet smoker is a RECTEQ 700. And I have 2 racks in it, 2 slide out racks that were kind of an aftermarket add-on thing. It allows me to put about 3 pounds in it. And 3 pounds of jerky at one time, and the low temperature, which is what I like to cook it at, is 180 degrees. That's the lowest it'll get on that grill. Now I've had previous grills that would get down to 150, 160, which I actually think is more ideal of a temperature, but I just have to keep an eye on it more at 180. It's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how I put it on the racks and how I situate it in there. Okay. Okay, so the grill is up to temperature, and as you can see, I have this rack system here. I'll pull it out for you. Put that on the table. And we got the bottom grate out. Okay, so now that the meat is on there, as you can see on those 2 shelves, I fit just under 3 pounds in there. It looks like I could have fit a little bit more. I've done this a bunch of times, but I never remember exactly how much I put on. But it looks like for those 2 racks out there on my RECTEQ, it looks like I could fit just under 3 pounds for this cook. I can probably have fit it a little bit more, maybe just over 3 pounds. So you want to, after you first put it on at the low temperature of 180 or so, you want to keep them on there for about 20 minutes before you check them. The first time you put them on, like right before you check them the first time, that's the only time you have to really go out and do something else and not pay attention for a while, maybe 20, 30 minutes. After that, you're going to be looking at them every 10 minutes because they will get done at various stages, depending on what part of the grill they're on. They'll get done to your liking at various stages, so you really have to keep checking them after that, especially around the edges of the grill. So I'll check them in 20, 30 minutes, and then I'll keep checking them, and I'll show you what they look like when they're done. So you can already see that the ones in the back are already getting kind of crispy. It's only been 25 minutes, 180 degrees. And you can see this one on the corner is getting a little red too. Now they're all going to turn red, which is fine. That's what the cure is, what makes them turn red. That's actually what you're looking for, is some redness. So we'll flip a few of these over and we'll come back in a few minutes and check again. Actually, what I like to do is take the edge pieces and trade them out with middle pieces. Okay, it's been about 20 minutes later again, another 20 minutes, so it's been about a total of 45-50 minutes now. As you can see, they're more red. Like I said before, they turn red as they cure. Or the cure is, you can see that they're a little bit more red now. And like I said, the cure, that curing salt is what makes them turn red. And that's great because that lets you know how done they are, because they get more and more red as they dehydrate. So what I like to do is I just like to flip them over after they've been cooking for, you know, half hour, 45 minutes. I just like to give them a nice little flip. It makes it more even. And then if you see ones again, if you see ones down on the edges that are a little bit dark or getting done a little bit too quickly, go ahead and just trade those out with some ones in the middle. The ones on the top rack here that you're seeing, that generally doesn't happen on the top rack. The bottom rack is where I see that issue mostly, but I'm just going to flip these and then I'll go down to the bottom rack and show you what those look like. Okay, so down here on the bottom rack, they're looking pretty good. Like I said, those ones in the back, they get crispy pretty quick. Okay guys, the jerky is done. I'm going to show it to you right now. It took about an hour and a half. It's a low temp, which again is 180 degrees on the grill. Here it is. I think that the amount of raw jerky I put on the grill was about 3 pounds. I think that the end result here is about, you know, after dehydrating and cooking, is about pound and a half, but I haven't weighed it. Like I said, as you're cooking it, it will turn red initially, and then it'll turn a darker color, like a really dark, deep red to black almost. Really good. I tried one piece, but it's definitely excellent.